What if a moment of darkness could reveal a powerful truth? As a solar eclipse approaches, Della faces a life-changing message that could alter everything. After a near-death experience, she is called to share important lessons about love, family, and humanity's future. But doubt and skepticism surround her, even from those she loves most. Can she find the courage to share her truth before the eclipse? Join us on this incredible journey, and stay with us until the end to discover how Della's story unfolds and what vital message awaits. You won't want to miss it. If you enjoyed Della's story and want to see more amazing experiences like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. If you found this video inspiring, share it with your friends and family. Your support means a lot to us and helps us create even more great content. Thanks for being here. Della Hartman, a 30-year-old woman, stood in front of her expansive window, watching the vibrant life of Seattle unfold below her. She appeared to have it all: an impressive career at a top marketing firm and a sleek apartment with a stunning view. Yet inside, she felt like a boat lost in a vast ocean, unable to find her way back to the safety of her personal life. The more success she achieved at work, the more her relationship with her long-term boyfriend, Matt, suffered. Despite his patience, Della's reluctance to fully commit loomed over them like a dark cloud, threatening to rain on their shared dreams. As she carefully packed her suitcase for a business trip to New York, her mind kept drifting back to her mother. It had been months since they last spoke, and the weight of that silence gnawed at her heart. She recalled family dinners filled with warmth and laughter, now replaced by a painful distance that seemed impossible to bridge. Guilt twisted in her stomach, mixing with confusion about her own emotions. Amid her inner turmoil, the news was ablaze with reports about the upcoming solar eclipse, a once-in-a-lifetime event that would be visible across the United States. While many buzzed with excitement, Della felt an unsettling sense of foreboding. It was as if this celestial event held deeper significance, hinting at a monumental change on the horizon that she couldn't quite put her finger on. On the plane, as it ascended toward New York, Della tried to shake off her growing anxiety. At first, the turbulence felt like a minor inconvenience, but it quickly escalated into something more alarming. The aircraft shook violently, and a chorus of gasps erupted from the passengers. Della's unease intensified, a tight knot forming in her stomach. Despite her worries about Matt and her mother lingering in the background, she pushed herself to concentrate on her work, determined to stay focused. Then, just as the eclipse began to cast its shadow across the land, the plane hit a severe patch of turbulence. Panic swept through the cabin, and fear gripped Della as she clutched the armrests, her heart pounding wildly. Something was terribly wrong, and a sense of dread washed over her, amplifying her anxiety. Suddenly, without warning, the engine sputtered and failed. A chilling silence fell over the cabin as the plane began to plummet toward the earth near Yellowstone National Park. Della felt her consciousness begin to drift, the chaotic world around her fading into a blur. In that moment, she could barely grasp the reality of what was happening as chaos erupted in every direction. In her last moments of awareness, the words echoed in her mind. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. Little did she know that this descent into darkness would lead her to profound revelations, illuminating truths she had yet to discover. In the blink of an eye, everything changed. Della found herself suspended in a serene stillness, floating above the wreckage of the plane. Time seemed to have lost its meaning. Moments stretched into eternity. Looking down, she saw the chaos below: twisted metal, scattered belongings, and the haunting cries of her fellow passengers. A wave of realization washed over her. She had left her physical body behind. As Della hovered in this ethereal space, a rush of emotions coursed through her. Fear mixed with an unexpected sense of peace enveloped her, creating a whirlwind of conflicting feelings. It was both terrifying and oddly comforting, like being cradled in the arms of a gentle breeze. Just as her heart began to settle, she felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing her upward into a tunnel of brilliant light. As she ascended, the warmth of the light wrapped around her, dissolving the fear that had clung to her. An overwhelming sense of love flooded her very essence. Memories began to flicker in front of her eyes. Moments from her childhood filled with laughter and joy, carefree days running through the park, and the day she met Matt, the sweetness of their early love. Yet intertwined with these joyful recollections were shadows of unresolved conflicts, particularly the rift with her mother. The weight of their silence loomed heavy in her heart. Suddenly, Della emerged from the tunnel, entering a breathtakingly beautiful realm. The air shimmered with a luminous glow, and the colors were more vibrant than she had ever seen. Here, the world felt timeless and unburdened by earthly worries. As she took in her surroundings, a divine figure approached her, cloaked in radiant light. His presence radiated warmth and understanding, yet he did not immediately reveal his identity. Della felt an irresistible connection to him, an inexplicable bond pulsing between them. "You have been brought here for an important reason," the figure said, his voice soothing and strong. "You are meant to receive a message that will alter the course of your life and the lives of many others." Della felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. What could this message possibly be? She searched his gaze for answers, but the mystery deepened. He continued, his tone grave yet compassionate. "The solar eclipse you witnessed is more than a mere astronomical event. It symbolizes a profound shift approaching Earth, a turning point in humanity's journey. And you, Della, are destined to be a messenger of what is to come." Her heart raced as the enormity of his words settled in. She had always been a seeker of truth, but this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. It was a calling, a chance to make a difference, yet the weight of responsibility felt daunting. "You are not yet done with your earthly life," the figure said, his voice gentle but firm. "But first, you must see what lies ahead." With that, Della's anticipation soared, and her mind buzzed with questions. What would she witness? What truths awaited her in this divine revelation? The cliffhanger hung in the air, leaving Della on the precipice of something extraordinary, poised between her past and a future full of possibility. The journey had only just begun, and the spiritual lessons that awaited her would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and her purpose. As Della floated in the ethereal realm, a deep sense of awe washed over her. The divine figure before her transformed, revealing himself to be Jesus, his presence radiating warmth and authority. In that moment, all her fears dissipated, replaced by a profound reverence. "The solar eclipse you witnessed is not just a cosmic event," he explained, his voice resonating deeply within her. "It is a marker of a significant shift that is about to unfold on Earth, one that will change humanity in ways you cannot yet understand." Della felt a wave of fear wash over her. The weight of what Jesus was sharing settled heavily on her heart. He continued, unveiling a chilling vision of the future. Suddenly, scenes of chaos flashed before her eyes. Neighborhoods once filled with laughter now stood silent and desolate. Families were evicted from their homes, desperately searching for shelter as the economy crumbled like a house of cards. "This financial collapse," Jesus explained, "is the result of humanity's greed and a collective failure to prepare for the storms that lie ahead." Her heart raced as she absorbed the gravity of these revelations. People must turn away from materialism and focus on cultivating spiritual richness, Jesus urged, his gaze piercing through her uncertainty. Only those who are rooted in faith will withstand the tempest approaching. But it wasn't just the economy at stake. The very fabric of human relationships was also under threat. Jesus' expression shifted, and Della felt a growing unease in the atmosphere. "Relationships will suffer during this time," he warned. "Families will be torn apart due to a lack of communication, faith, and love." His words struck a personal chord, bringing to light the unresolved tensions between her and her mother. It became evident to Della that her own struggles were a reflection of a much larger issue within society. As the visions faded, she felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. Jesus leaned closer, his voice gentle yet firm. "You will witness even darker revelations, Della, but I must ask you this. Will you be brave enough to share these truths with the world?" Her heart raced with the weight of his question, leaving her suspended in a moment of deep reflection about the daunting choice that lay ahead. As the warm, radiant glow of the ethereal realm surrounded Della, she sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Jesus looked deeply into her eyes, and with a voice that was both soothing and authoritative, he began to speak. "Della," he said, "we must address the unresolved issues in your life. Your relationship with your mother and your fears about committing to Matt are not just personal struggles. They are part of a larger spiritual crisis within your soul." A wave of vulnerability washed over her as the weight of his words sank in. Della thought back to the strained conversations she'd had with her mother, the unreturned calls, and the growing distance that had formed between them. She felt her heart ache as she reflected on her long-term relationship with Matt, a love that had once felt so full of promise, but now seemed burdened by her inability to fully commit. Suddenly, the vision shifted, and she was transported to a chilling scene of her potential future. Della stood alone in a cold, empty room. The walls felt like they were closing in around her, and a bitter sense of regret filled her heart. Matt was nowhere to be found. He had moved on, seeking comfort elsewhere, and her family connections lay frayed and broken. The isolation was suffocating, a haunting reminder of what could happen if she continued to ignore the truth. "Look at what awaits you if you don't change, Della," Jesus continued, his voice filled with compassion. "You see, your mission is not just to share the future with the world. It is also to heal your own relationships. The love you share with your family is the foundation of your life." His words struck a chord deep within her. Della felt the weight of regret pressing down on her heart as she considered the time she had wasted, the love she had taken for granted. Jesus' gaze softened, as if he could sense the turmoil within her. "The trials that are coming will test everyone's relationships," he warned gently. "But those who cling to love and faith will find a way to navigate the storm." At that moment, Della felt an awakening inside her, a flicker of hope ignited by Jesus' words. She recalled the teachings from her childhood, memories of her mother sharing stories of love and forgiveness. A particular verse surfaced in her mind, echoing with clarity. Ephesians 4:2-3. "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace." The reminder felt like a lifeline, urging her to seek the healing and reconciliation she desperately needed. Then, Jesus revealed another vision. Della gasped as she saw her mother sitting in a dimly lit room, looking frail and alone, her face etched with worry and longing. Her heart ached at the sight, as she realized that her mother was waiting for her to reach out, to bridge the gap that had grown between them. The loneliness in that vision struck her deeply, and tears began to fill her eyes. Della felt an overwhelming urge to change, to mend what had been broken. She understood that the time for healing was now. Yet, as the vision began to fade, a profound question hung in the air. Would she have the courage to change? Would she be brave enough to confront her fears? To reach out to her mother and embrace the love that had always been there, waiting for her? The choice before her felt monumental, leaving her suspended in uncertainty. She had seen what lay ahead, both the potential for isolation and the possibility of healing. Would she step into the light of love, or would she retreat into the shadows of fear and regret? The path she would choose remained unclear, but one thing was certain: the journey had only just begun. In that moment, as the ethereal realm pulsed with energy, Della felt the weight of her decision resting heavily upon her. The anticipation of what was to come filled her with a sense of purpose, igniting a flame of determination within her soul. She had to find a way to reclaim her relationships and embrace the love that awaited her, not only for her own sake, but for the sake of those she cherished. The echoes of Jesus' words lingered in her heart, guiding her toward a path of healing and hope. As Della floated in the serene light, a powerful presence enveloped her. It was then that Jesus turned his gaze fully upon her, revealing not just his identity, but the depths of her heart. A wave of awe washed over Della, mingling with a deep-seated fear. She sensed that what he was about to share would touch the core of her existence. "Della," he began, his voice gentle yet firm, "your fear of commitment runs deeper than you realize. It is tied to issues of trust, both in yourself and in those you love." His words hung in the air, resonating within her. Della felt a knot in her stomach as memories surfaced. Moments with Matt flashed before her eyes, filled with hesitation and withdrawal. The wall she had built around her heart was crumbling, and the weight of her fears became palpable. With a flick of his hand, Jesus presented a vision of Della's life, a life where she had chosen to embrace love fully. In this future, she saw herself wrapped in Matt's arms, their laughter echoing like music. They shared intimate moments, exploring the depths of each other's hearts, unearthing vulnerabilities that had previously been hidden. It was beautiful. Yet Della couldn't shake the lingering doubt. What if it all fell apart? What if she got hurt? "Love," Jesus spoke, reading her thoughts as easily as one reads a book, "requires trust and surrender. Without faith in love and in others, you risk isolating yourself. You will miss the true connections that bring fulfillment." His words struck a chord, and Della felt tears welling up. She recognized how her fears had kept her from fully experiencing life, from embracing the love that was right in front of her. Yet the vision shifted. Della witnessed a different reality, one where she let her fears guide her choices. In this version, she and Matt drifted apart, communication faltering, laughter replaced by silence. She felt the ache of loneliness deep in her soul, as if an essential part of her being was withering away. The thought of losing Matt, of letting her fear dictate her life, filled her with despair. Love is not without pain, Jesus continued, a profound understanding in his eyes. But it is through love that you will find true fulfillment. Pain and joy are intertwined, and embracing one leads to the other. His message resonated within her, like a spark igniting a flame. Della understood that to fully live, she had to risk her heart. The weight of her decision loomed heavily, yet it felt oddly liberating. As the light around her pulsed with energy, Jesus posed a final question. Will you open your heart and trust Matt, or will you allow your fear to drive a wedge between you? The choice lay before her like a crossroad, the future dependent on her next steps. Della felt the urgency of the moment, her heart racing as she considered the possibilities that awaited her. Della felt a sudden jolt as she was transported back into a vast expanse of shimmering light. The serene realm she had just experienced faded, replaced by a whirlwind of images flashing before her eyes like a powerful storm brewing on the horizon. As the storm settled, she found herself on the edge of a precipice, gazing down at scenes unfolding across America. Look closely, Della, Jesus urged, his voice calm amid the chaos. What you see is a glimpse of what lies ahead for your nation. Before her, the landscape shifted into a tapestry of despair. She witnessed families being evicted from their homes, children standing on the streets with tear-stained faces clutching their belongings. The cries of despair echoed in her heart as she saw parents desperately trying to console their children, their own faces etched with fear and hopelessness. Banks will fail, Jesus continued, pointing to the images. The economy will collapse under the weight of greed and a lack of foresight. People have prioritized wealth over spiritual growth, and now they will reap the consequences of their choices. Della felt the weight of those words, understanding the truth behind them. But why? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why must they suffer like this? Because they have turned their backs on what truly matters, Jesus replied, sadness lacing his tone. Materialism has consumed them, blinding them to their spiritual needs. This is not just a warning, but a call to awaken before it is too late. The scenes around her shifted again, revealing a different kind of turmoil. Crowds gathered in the streets, protesting against one another, divided by beliefs and ideologies. She saw individuals shouting, filled with anger and hatred, their faces twisted in rage. Division is rampant, Jesus declared. People have lost sight of love and compassion. They are quick to judge and slow to understand. This spiritual crisis is as grave as the economic one. The loss of faith has created a void, leading to disconnection and despair. Della's heart ached at the sight of her fellow countrymen in turmoil. She felt a pang of responsibility, knowing that she had a part to play in sharing the truth she had learned. What can I do? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Speak boldly, Della, Jesus encouraged. Tell them to turn back to faith. Remind them that love, kindness, and understanding are the true currencies of life. They must prepare their hearts and souls for the challenges ahead. As the images continued to swirl, Della was consumed by a sense of urgency. The weight of her mission pressed down on her, and a wave of fear washed over her. But what if they don't listen? She questioned, doubt creeping in. Not everyone will heed your message, Jesus admitted, his expression grave. But you must not let that deter you. Some will hear, some will change, and those lives will be transformed. With each moment that passed, the visions intensified, showing her more heart-wrenching scenes. Families torn apart, individuals lost in despair, communities fractured by division. Della could feel the pain of each person as if it were her own, igniting a fire within her. I will warn them, she vowed, determination solidifying her resolve. I will share what I've seen. I can't stand by while this happens. Then remember, Della, Jesus reminded her. Your words must be wrapped in love. They will need to feel your compassion if they are to open their hearts to your truth. As the vision began to fade and the light around her brightened, she felt Jesus' presence slip away, leaving her with a final thought. Time is of the essence. With that, Della awoke back in her body, the hospital room around her filled with the beeping of machines and the murmurs of doctors. The sense of urgency clung to her like a heavy fog. She had seen the future, and it was now her responsibility to act. But as she looked around the sterile room, doubt crept in. Would anyone believe her? Would they listen? The weight of her mission loomed over her, but the fire ignited in her heart burned brighter. Will I have the courage to share these truths? She wondered, as the reality of her situation set in. The upcoming days would challenge her resolve more than she ever imagined. Would she be brave enough to stand up and speak out? Only time would tell. Della felt enveloped in a warmth that was both comforting and illuminating as she floated in the radiant light. Yet she could sense it beginning to fade. Turning to her side, she found Jesus standing beside her, his expression a mixture of calmness and seriousness that made her heart race. "Della," he said, his voice resonating like a gentle bell, "your time here is coming to an end. You must return to Earth." A wave of questions crashed over her. "Return? But what about everything I've seen? What about the message you've given me? Will people even believe me? How can I change my life in time to make a difference?" Jesus locked eyes with her, and in that moment, Della felt an overwhelming sense of love and understanding radiating from him. "Your journey is just beginning. You have a mission now, and it will not be easy. Many may not believe your story at first. They might dismiss you as a dreamer or a fool, but those who listen will find hope in your words." The gravity of his statement weighed heavily on her heart. "But what if I fail? What if I can't make a difference?" "You are stronger than you realize," Jesus reassured her, his words wrapping around her like a protective blanket. "Your purpose is to heal, to love, and to share the truth you have received. It's not about how many people believe you, but the impact you can have on even one heart." As he spoke, the light around them began to dim, and Della felt a gentle tug pulling her back toward her body, a reminder of the urgency in his words. "Please," she implored, her voice shaking. "I want to do this. I want to help. But it feels so big. Where do I even start?" Jesus smiled softly, his gaze filled with encouragement. "Start with your family. Heal those wounds first. Love them fiercely. And from there, let your words flow. You will find the strength you need in the love you share." Nodding, Della absorbed his wisdom like a lifeline thrown to her in the storm of uncertainty. As she descended further, the light around her intensified, wrapping her in a cocoon of warmth, and she felt herself being pulled back toward the world she had left behind. "Your time is short, Della," Jesus added, his voice fading into the brilliance that surrounded her. "Use it wisely. Heal your family, love deeply, and speak the truth." In an instant, she awoke in a hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic and the beeping of machines flooding her senses. Blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights, Della turned her head to see doctors and nurses bustling around, but one face stood out among them: Matt. His eyes were wide with concern, relief washing over him as he met her gaze. "Della, you're awake. Thank God," he exclaimed, a mix of joy and worry in his voice. "Matt," she breathed, the reality of her situation crashing over her like a wave. "What happened? How long was I gone?" "You were in surgery for hours," he explained, reaching for her hand and squeezing it tightly. "We were all so worried about you. The doctors said you almost didn't make it." His words struck her deeply. She had come so close to never returning, and now she had a second chance. A sense of urgency gripped her. She couldn't waste this opportunity. "Matt," she began, feeling the weight of her mission pressing down on her. "I need to talk to you about something important. About everything I've experienced." He nodded, concern etching lines on his face. "Of course. But first, you need to rest. You've been through a lot." "No, please," she insisted, her voice rising slightly with desperation. "You don't understand. It's about the future, about our family. There are things I need to warn you about, things that I saw." Matt's brow furrowed in confusion, and for a moment fear gripped her heart. What if he dismissed her as delusional? But instead, he leaned closer, his expression shifting to one of curiosity. "What exactly did you see?" Taking a deep breath, Della began to recount the visions that had flooded her mind. Images of despair, families losing everything, and the urgent warning Jesus had given her. She could see it all so clearly in her mind. "The truth is, we can't stay in our comfortable lives anymore," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We have to make changes, not just for ourselves, but for our family and those around us. Love is the foundation we must build upon. We can't ignore what's coming. Matt listened intently, his eyes widening with each detail she shared. Della, I believe you. I've seen you change so much. If you're saying we need to prepare, then I'm with you. But how do we start? Tears of relief filled Della's eyes as she realized Matt was ready to support her. We start with love. We reach out to our family, to our friends. We share what we've learned and encourage them to connect spiritually. It's not just about warning them. It's about guiding them back to what truly matters. As she spoke, a weight lifted from her shoulders. This was the moment she had hoped for, the support of her husband in embracing the mission she had been given. Together, they could make a difference. Let's make a plan, Matt suggested, his voice now filled with determination. We'll start small. We'll talk to your parents, maybe invite them over for dinner. We'll share your experience and start a dialogue. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Della nodded, gratitude swelling in her heart. Yes, that's a great idea. We need to make it a loving conversation, one that invites them to reflect and open up. As she lay back against the pillows, a renewed sense of purpose washed over her. This was just the beginning. The road ahead would be challenging, but she was no longer alone. She had Matt by her side, and she carried the mission that Jesus had entrusted to her. In that moment of clarity, Della knew they had to act quickly. Time was precious, and they couldn't afford to hesitate. The world outside was changing, and with it, the hearts of those around them needed to awaken to the truth before it was too late. With Matt's hand firmly in hers, Della felt a surge of hope. They would face the challenges together, and with each step they took, they would bring others closer to love, healing, and understanding. It was time to embrace the mission, and she was ready to lead the way. As the days passed, Della and Matt worked together to create a plan. They reached out to their family and friends, arranging small gatherings where Della could share her story. Each time she spoke, she felt the weight of her mission pressing down on her, but the support from Matt made it easier to bear. With each conversation, she felt more empowered. She spoke of love, faith, and the urgent need for spiritual awakening. She told them about the visions of struggle and division, but always emphasized the hope that love could bring. In their living room, surrounded by the people they loved, Della felt the energy shift. Skepticism slowly melted away as her family listened intently. She could see the concern in their eyes as she shared the truth Jesus had imparted to her. Together, she urged, we can create a ripple effect. If we embrace love and compassion, we can help prepare ourselves and others for what's to come. As Della watched their faces soften, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. She knew this was just the beginning, but they were taking steps together, and that was all that mattered. They were beginning to understand that it was not just about her experience. It was about all of them coming together in love and faith. The journey ahead would be long and there would be challenges. Yet with each conversation, each moment of connection, Della felt more resolute in her mission. She knew she had been given a precious gift, the gift of purpose, and she intended to use it fully. With every heartbeat, she felt the weight of the world around her. It was time for them to heal, to come together as a family and face the future with love as their guiding light. Together they could make a difference, one heart at a time. As Della slowly regained consciousness, the harsh glow of the fluorescent lights above felt disorienting. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled her nostrils, a sharp reminder of the reality she was returning to. It contrasted starkly with the warmth and peace she had just experienced in the spiritual realm, where she had shared profound moments with Jesus. Those memories were still vivid in her mind, and each word from their encounter resonated deep within her heart, fueling a new sense of purpose. Her first task was daunting, yet crucial, reconnecting with her estranged mother. A wave of apprehension washed over her as she considered the emotional chasm that lay between them. Years of silence and unresolved pain hung heavily in the air, like an uninvited guest at a family gathering. Della understood that confronting her past was necessary for healing, not just for herself, but for her mother as well. With every step she took toward her mother's hospital room, a mix of determination and fear surged within her. Memories of their last interaction flooded her thoughts. Bitter words exchanged in anger, tears of frustration, and the deep sorrow that had lingered ever since. She took a moment to breathe deeply, reminding herself of Jesus' message about love, forgiveness, and the importance of family. Vulnerability was a necessary part of love, and it was time for her to embrace it fully. When she finally reached her mother's door, her heart raced. Della paused for a moment to gather her thoughts and courage. The door creaked open, revealing her mother sitting by the window, a fragile figure wrapped in a thin hospital blanket. The sunlight poured in, illuminating the years etched on her mother's face. A face that once beamed with love and pride, but now bore the marks of pain and regret. Della's heart ached at the sight of the woman who had once been her biggest supporter, now reduced to a shadow of her former self. "Mom?" Della's voice wavered, trembling with both longing and uncertainty. Her mother turned to face her, surprise washing over her features. The initial shock soon gave way to a whirlwind of emotions: joy, confusion, and deep-seated fear. "Della? Is that really you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Della stepped forward, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken apologies and unresolved feelings. "I'm here. I'm so sorry for everything that's happened between us," she managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. Tears welled up in her mother's eyes, and she instinctively reached out, her voice breaking. "I never stopped loving you, Della. I didn't know how to reach you." As they embraced, years of pain and misunderstanding began to dissipate. Their tears mingled in a release of pent-up emotions, and for the first time in a long time, Della felt the healing power of love wrap around them. They spoke through their tears, sharing stories and memories that had been buried for far too long. Della realized how much she had missed her mother, and she could see the deep-seated pain in her eyes. The pain of loss, regret, and yearning for connection. "Mom, I had an experience," Della began, her voice steadying as she recounted her time with Jesus. "He showed me how important it is to love one another, to let go of fear, and to embrace the light within us. I need you to understand that what we've gone through doesn't define us. We can heal together." Her mother listened intently, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and sorrow. "I've missed so much of your life, and I regret how we drifted apart. I want to be a part of your journey, Della." As they spoke, Della felt the chains of her past begin to loosen. She realized that her fear of vulnerability had kept her from truly living, from fully embracing her life and relationships. By allowing herself to be open and honest, she was paving the way for genuine connection and healing. The atmosphere shifted, filled with a warmth that only unconditional love could bring. The past, with all its hurt, began to fade as they took small steps toward a brighter future. They shared laughter and tears, remembering the moments that had once bound them together. Della's mother recounted stories from Della's childhood, stories filled with laughter and love that seemed to echo from a time long lost. As their conversation deepened, Della felt a profound sense of peace enveloping her. The weight of her earlier mission began to shift, yet a more significant question loomed over her heart. She had received a powerful message about the solar eclipse and its significance for humanity, but how could she share this revelation with the world? Would people believe her? Would they be willing to listen and open their hearts to the truth she now held so dear? The weight of her mission pressed down on her, yet she felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. With her mother by her side, she was ready to take the next step, to share the light she had discovered, and to inspire others to embrace love and faith before it was too late. But as she pondered these questions, a sense of urgency gripped her heart. The world was shifting, and she needed to act quickly. The journey ahead would not be easy, and she knew she would face skepticism and doubt. Still, she felt a newfound strength coursing through her veins, a resolve to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Her mother's soft voice broke through her thoughts. "Della, we can do this together. You don't have to bear this alone." The sincerity in her mother's words wrapped around Della like a warm blanket, soothing her fears. They exchanged a look filled with understanding and mutual support. The road ahead was uncertain, but Della knew she could rely on the love they shared to guide them through the storms to come. And with that understanding, Della felt a surge of hope swell within her, ready to take on the world and share the light she had found. As the days counted down to the eagerly awaited solar eclipse, Della felt an increasing urgency for her mission. The weight of the message she had received during her near-death experience pressed heavily on her heart. It was no longer just about her journey of reconnecting with her mother. It had transformed into a profound mission to share the hope and healing she had discovered with a world that desperately needed it. With each tick of the clock, the reality of the impending eclipse loomed larger, symbolizing not just an astronomical event, but a critical moment for humanity. Della took the first step by gathering her friends and family. She wanted to open her heart and share her incredible experience with them, hoping they would provide the support she desperately sought. One evening, as she sat with a small group of her closest friends, she mustered the courage to speak. "I have something really important to share with you all," she began, her voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability. "A few weeks ago, I had a near-death experience where I met Jesus, and he revealed some amazing truths about love, family, and our purpose on earth." A heavy silence filled the room. Her friends exchanged glances, some displaying looks of confusion while others appeared intrigued. Finally, Sarah, one of her closest friends, spoke up. "Della, are you feeling okay? This sounds incredible, but it also sounds a bit unbelievable, you know?" Della felt her heart drop but pressed on, determined to convey her truth. "I know how it sounds, but what I experienced changed me deeply. It was real. I witnessed visions of what our world could become if we don't embrace love and compassion. I feel this urgency to share what I've learned before it's too late." "But you've been through so much," another friend interjected. "Sometimes after a traumatic event, our minds can play tricks on us. Maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed." Their skepticism stung, but Della was resolute. "I understand your concern, but this isn't just about me. It's about all of us. Jesus warned me that we're facing critical times. The eclipse isn't just a natural phenomenon. It symbolizes a major shift that we need to prepare for." The next day, feeling both hopeful and anxious, she turned to Matt, her partner. She needed him to understand, to support her. They sat across the table in their cozy kitchen, tension crackling in the air. "Della, I can't deny that you've experienced something life-changing, but this feels like a lot to swallow," he said, concern etched on his face. "I know it sounds crazy," she replied, desperation creeping into her tone. "But you have to believe me. What I went through was real. I can't just stand by and do nothing when I know what I know. We need to prepare ourselves and others for what's coming." Matt leaned back, his brow furrowing. "How do we prepare? How do you even share this? It sounds extreme. I'm worried you might be setting yourself up for disappointment." "Jesus told me to speak the truth, no matter the outcome," she insisted, her determination solid. "I can't ignore this call. It feels too important to let fear hold me back." As the days rolled on, doubt began to creep into her heart. The feedback from friends and family was mixed, leaving her feeling vulnerable and disheartened. Despite her longing to share her message, she wondered if she was making a mistake. Then came the day before the eclipse, a day filled with a strange combination of excitement and anxiety. Della stood in her backyard, gazing up at the sky, the impending darkness looming. With each passing hour, she felt the pressure mount. This was it. Tomorrow would be the day she shared her truth with the world. The morning of the eclipse dawned with an almost magical quality. People gathered in parks and backyards, their eyes fixed on the sky, ready to witness this extraordinary event. Della felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders, both exhilarating and daunting. As she stood among her neighbors, a blend of excitement and apprehension surged through her. "I want to remind everyone that this eclipse is more than just a beautiful sight," she said, her voice slightly trembling yet resolute. "It's a symbol of the change we need to embrace. We must open our hearts and minds to the truth and love we've been neglecting." As the moon began its slow march across the sun, a hush fell over the crowd. Della's heart raced as she saw the first sliver of darkness cover the sun. The temperature dropped, and a soft twilight enveloped them. Gasps of wonder filled the air as people marveled at the celestial display, but Della couldn't shake the feeling of unease creeping back in. Would anyone truly listen to her message? Would her truth get lost in the shadows? Just then, a voice from the back of the crowd called out, "Della, we believe you!" A familiar face stepped forward, nodding in support. "You've always had a light in you. We want to hear what you have to say." That simple affirmation ignited a spark of hope within her. Others began to echo their agreement, sharing their own stories of connection and healing. Della felt the tides turning, the shadows lifting not just from the sky, but from their hearts as well. As the eclipse reached its peak, the world around them transformed into an enchanting twilight. Stars flickered to life, and a hushed awe enveloped the gathering. "This is a reminder," she cried, her voice rising above the crowd's hushed murmurs. "A reminder that light can break through darkness. We can choose to embrace love, heal our divisions, and come together as one." In that fleeting moment, Della felt a powerful connection with everyone around her. Their faces glowed with wonder, eyes wide as they absorbed the beauty above. This was more than just a celestial event. It was a moment of unity, a rare chance to rise above skepticism and doubt. But as the eclipse continued, Della noticed a few faces looking away, expressions shifting from awe to discomfort. Doubts threatened to drown her resolve. What if her message fell flat? What if her truth was swallowed by the darkness? Suddenly, the sun began to re-emerge from behind the moon, bathing the world in brilliant light once more. Della felt a rush of energy. This was not just an ending, but a new beginning. The eclipse symbolized hope, a chance for everyone to awaken to the light within themselves. With renewed determination, Della realized that her mission was just beginning. She would continue to speak her truth, share her message of love, and inspire others to embrace their journeys of healing. As the sunlight cascaded over the crowd, Della felt the presence of Jesus guiding her forward. She was ready to step into the light, eager to carry the message she had been entrusted with. She envisioned herself speaking to larger audiences, sharing her story far and wide, and empowering others to discover their own truths. With the eclipse now a beautiful memory etched in their hearts, Della felt an exhilarating sense of purpose. The world may have seemed daunting, filled with doubt and division, but she was ready to face it head-on, armed with love, faith, and an unwavering commitment to her mission. As she looked around at the people standing together in the aftermath of the eclipse, she saw a flicker of understanding in their eyes. They were all in this together, navigating the complexities of life, love, and the journey ahead. In that moment, Della knew that her voice mattered, and with every word she spoke, she would help illuminate the path toward a brighter future for all. With hope swirling around her like the light breaking through the shadows, Della took a deep breath, ready to embrace the journey ahead. Her heart brimmed with gratitude for the chance to share her message, and she knew that together, they could create a world filled with love, compassion, and connection. Thank you for joining us on Della's incredible journey. If you found her story touching, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring content like this. We'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if you think someone else could benefit from this message, share the video with your friends and family. Your support helps us spread these important stories. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.